morning. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, Justin, John, and Quimby. Quimby. Quindy, you know, one of these days, I don't know, I think my brain just, goes off into the ether before I get to the end of my spiel. And in the ether, your name is one of three things. And I roll a d3 every time. I swear. One of these days. I had your name nailed for ages, but for some reason... Quimby, yes. Quimby, Quilby, Quildy, Quimby. Alright, well good, then we're just channeling each other. Quincy, now I know that it's a hard consonant. I know it's not a soft consonant. But you know, this is just because I couldn't do the award ceremony at ReaperCon last year. It's bleeding through into messing up people's names on stream. Hi guys, look, it's a mushroom. It's Thursday Mushroom Day. Oh jeez. Some people don't look like their names. Have you noticed this? Like maybe that was why, Albavezin. Because some people you're just like, no, you're not a Jake. Like, you're totally not a Jake. Like, you're a Horatio or something. You know, like, some people just don't look like their names. But yeah, one of these days, my brain just goes blur at the end of my spiel. And it's like, it's not like I don't see your name flash up on my screen as you tell people to refresh to make sure they can see my screen. So like, maybe I just need to plant a little brainworm in my head that says, hey, read that name. That name you see in chat. Let's see, what do we want to do today? I think we want to continue with our blueness, and we want to see if we can continue that little glowy thing we got going on there, and maybe highlight some of these browns, and maybe do a little bit of lining, and yeah, all those things. Let's do those things. Let's back up those. She's huge. This model is huge. Huge! And I've got a wet palette in front of me, because I forgot to... get it off of my plate, so maybe I'll use it. Maybe we'll wet palette. I got it out yesterday because I was optimistic and thinking maybe I would actually do some painting, but I was trying to preserve my back, so I decided not to. Otter Mama! Right now, what color composition says should happen is that at least the outer rows of the mushrooms should have some blue in them. Do you see what I mean? We've got blue up here, we've got blue up there, but we've only got this really light blue here, and we could use some contrast with dark here. I don't think going light would be as effective. So I'm thinking that I'm going to have the mushrooms go towards much of the same color as the top is going to be, which is more like the coral color that I was thinking. But yeah, I haven't decided yet. I don't decide till I decide. Oh wow, tons of quindies. That's a crap ton of quindies. Like, is crap ton a unit of quindies? Like, what's your unit, Quindy? Multiple quindies are a what? A giggle? A competence? A competence of quindies. That's it. Yeah, Automama, I'm very comfortable with not knowing what every color is going to be. Right when I start, it's part of the, you like that one, Quindy? It's part of just the way that I paint. It's part of the fun of painting to me. I don't like to pre-plan everything. Yeah, I don't think anything else has a competence. But I think it's awesome and it should totally be a thing. Well, that's Bug Lips, though. That's why we don't ask him. An Nostromo of Quindies. Alright, let's see here. So we need to get out some colors. We need to check our awesome Fungal Queen tip sheet, i.e. the sticky note of doom, to get out our various blues to do that glow, which is going to be Nightmare and Cyan. We were using some bleached linen to highlight that up, just because why not? And then I think I am gonna fill out some blue. I'm gonna maybe make this outer row here. Just this outer row of smaller mushrooms, I think. I'm gonna go blue with it. Because if we're alternating colors on the miniature, our choices are to either go red or blue, and blue is going to give me more contrast with this brown here. Because they're complementary colors. Browns are muted oranges or yellows, usually oranges, and so blue and brown are complementary, which means they're going to give me the greatest level of contrast. So I may do that on both sides, but since these are very segmented little fungi, I can totally have the colors shift as they go across, and that's probably what I'll do, is I'll have kind of a color shifting fungi dress back here. It's what I was planning to do up here anyway, with going from maybe a dark red into some yellowy orange and the salmon color, the coral color, and then actually thinking about fading it out down toward more of a green hue down here, just to kind of represent all the colors on her in her cap. So yeah, when you've got something that's partitioned up like this, it's very easy to do, to make each of these mushrooms have a bunch of variants in them. If you go too crazy, then you're probably gonna lose a bit of attention, because if you put a ton of detail and changes and down here, you're going to distract the eye. It's not as important though, because this is the back of the model. As long as you also make it really interesting up here, you're fine. Thanks, Zig. Yeah, this was a hard sculpt for me as far as what I wanted to do with it. But I'm pretty happy with it now, as far as how she's developing. The brown clinched it for me. It needed some brown. Sometimes, guys, when you are having a color quandary, and I say this, I think, even as far back as my Dark Sword video that I shot, almost 20 years ago. 15 years ago? I think it's about 15 years ago. But browns, especially kind of neutral browns, are what I call grounding colors. They tend to harmonize with everything else, and when you add one onto your model, everything suddenly comes together a bit more. And that's exactly what happened when I added this shield brown down here. Is everything kind of pulled together a bit better, and suddenly everything was harmonizing a little bit better. Sometimes you need those neutrals. Do not downplay neutrals in your painting. Don't always be reaching for the next bright color. Introduce some neutrals that go with everything. It's going to make it a lot easier for your model to just kind of go together. Yo, everybody. So yeah, I cannot emphasize that enough. I have so many people who just reach for the next bright color, and they never even think of making a neutral brown just a part of the color scheme. And it helps. It really helps. So, all right. I could have gone a bit darker on that brown, but it's cave formations. They tend to be pale, so that's not gonna... I thought that it wouldn't work for me. Let us use the wet palette. We'll do some blocking in. Since I've got it, I may as well use it. And I'm not doing any super fine layering today, where I would want more of the well palette. Nor am I doing texture work. That'll be this afternoon when I do my own stream. Then we're going to be doing both texture work and detail. Thanks, Rascal. We are working with it. I am mixing up, I am not mixing up, I am wet paletting up some colors. Hopefully I have enough water in my palette. This palette seems to run dry. Meaning that if I don't have the paper absolutely floating on water, it seems like it's too dry for me. Maybe it's because I'm used to such thin paint. So I'm like, Brr. Yes, it's twice Anne today. Twice the Anne. Yeah, we'll be working on Halfling Assassin this afternoon because I'm psyched. She's getting really close to done. And that's on, I may as well just give the plug. It's on twitch.tv/paintingbig. That is where you can find me this afternoon, myself, doing my own thing on Twitch at about 4 p.m. USA Central Time. So I'm just pretty much laying out a blob of each of these colors on my wet palette. We have Nightmare Black, just so we have some contrast, because a lot of this stuff down here is going light to medium. The green is the darkest thing here. I need to continue to bring in some darks here. I may make a I may alter what I'm thinking. I may go from a dark blue to an olive green and then over. But I do want to start with the blue, so we're at least going to start with the blue. We're going to do that. Doo-doo. I was gonna say, help it Reaper Mini. Should work. Alright, I want my russet brown. I think we're using some brown liner too to get this brown in place. I'm gonna be working back and forth a little bit today, I think. Here and there, back and forth, hither and yon. You know, all those things. Hey, ASMR, thank you. Resub 13 months. YOLO, yep, totally. That's super. Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. We appreciate every little bit of support you guys give us. Oh, cool, Coroniko. Yay. It's kind of late for you, isn't it? Not that that has ever, like, kept you from it before. Alrighty. And do I want one more thing? I think I'm gonna go with that. No, I've got a smart. I've got a brain. I want to actually get my green mixed up too. So, since wet palette is pretty organic, but also since your paint's gonna stay wet forever on it, for both these reasons, it's good to just lay down every blob you need before you even start. That way you could just go crazy. And go a little bit nuts. Let's see here. Am I going to use my kind of craptastic blocking in brush? Poor thing. It's like, I'm a red sable. I'm just not as good as your other brushes. I'm not crappy. That's what it says. Not as, no, that's true. Not as late as Reaper Live. All right. I'm going to try to use craptastic block it in brush. I'm sure I'm really hurting its like self-image by calling it that constantly, but it is. I'm calling it like I see it. Sorry, brush. There we go. We're going to be focusing on the bottom part of the model. You know, I do think I need to put it on something I can hold a little more comfortably, though. 1 second. Let me grab the giant block. Take my commission model off of the giant block. And put the mushroom lady onto the giant block. Squoosh. Squoosh. This is the giant. It is the 2-inch block. She fits pretty well on there. That way I can very gently hold her without really crimping my hand, which just this narrow base was just not working out very well for me. Yeah, this is much more comfortable. Good deal. Yay. All right. I'm going to thin down some of this paint. Just because your paint's on a wet palette doesn't mean you can't pre-thin it. It just means it tends to ignore you and lose its water. So let's get some more glowy effects done on these little guys up front first, because that's fun. I am going to use a slightly better brush for that. Slightly better brush. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with Halfling Assassin Girl. She'll definitely be done for ReaperCon. Let's see if this is too strong. So when you're doing these lighting effects, you kind of want to start with something that's not so strong. And when you're dealing with a white or an off-white, that can be difficult because they want to cover. And I want this glowy effect to be just right around where this blue is. It cuts off right where this rounds over because the blue here can only glow so far. Ha 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 ha. But yeah, doing this kind of really thin paint application where I'm trying to essentially do some blending is pretty difficult on the wet palette. You have to really have a feel for like what you're trying to do. And that's why I always tell you guys that sometimes you might get more mileage if you're struggling with your paint consistency. You may get more mileage for through working with a well palette first. It may be less frustrating to you, because then you can totally control the paint consistency and kind of dial it in, get a feel for it, and then when you go to your wet palette, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, well that's not quite thin enough, and you'll just adjust it. There are two ways that I've found to adjust the amount of water in my brush on the fly on the wet palette. And one is to directly dip it into a water droplet, or if you have to, the water at the side of the paper. The other one is to drag the tip lightly over the paper, which does itself pick up a little bit of water, but if you're dealing with a very opaque paint like this, like any white or off-white, it's probably not going to be enough. Hey, Nardi. All right, see you, Shadow Raven. I don't know if we can have fun without you. So I do keep some puddles of, like, blobs of water on the surface of my wet palette, just for that purpose, because I do find that if I'm trying to thin down some white to a consistency where I can layer with it, or anything like that, if I'm working with a really light color, then I need to have it blend, so I need it to more thinness than you can normally get on a wet palette. That is useful to have those blobs around. We want to make it really bright down near the blue, so as you can see, so that we get kind of a glowy effect. Zero fun. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, I mean, it seems logical to me. Whenever I've already got kind of that little bit of a glowy thing going on right here, right? So whenever you want to, like, if you feel like the base is kind of boring, but you have, like, glowing fungus already, like, it makes sense, especially because you've got the backdrop here. That's what makes this work, is that you've got a backdrop to put a glow effect against. Glow effects work best against backdrops. It's very difficult, or I should say it's much harder to make a glow effect read if you don't have it up against something. It's why I don't like doing a glow effect if it's a fiery sword held out at arm's length. It's like, well, what do you have? You've only got space around it. You can't magically paint the space. So the only thing you can do is, like, paint the hand and the wrist and a bit of the sleeve or armor, unless you're going to make it seem to glow really super bright. But that is its own problems, because that can mess up the rest of your miniature by overwhelming it. So I very much prefer, for me, this is a no-brainer. For me, doing a glow effect when I have a backdrop like this is really just easy. It's low-hanging glow fruit. You can be funless, Pendrake? Oh, come on. Come on, don't be so hard on yourself. It's a good day. It's Thursday, for one thing, and that means the weekend is coming. And this weekend, I have, like, nothing planned. Nothing. Nothing. I love those weekends. Don't you love those weekends? When you have absolutely nothing planned? While I'm doing this, I'm gonna do a little bit of regular highlighting. I have a bit of white that I've added, bit of bleached linen, I should say, that I've added to some of my brown, so I can bring out the details a little bit better. Oh, too much brown there. Ah, 3-day road trip. Overthinking is overrated, Pendrake. What were we talking about yesterday that was totally overthinking? Gosh, I can't remember. But people in the hobby overthink a lot. You're not alone. Like, sometimes the answer is really the simplest, easiest one. Just trying to grab little bits of white here so I can make it much brighter down near the shroom. Oh, right, bases. Yep. Good, thanks. Yeah, it was the slotted filling and the slotted bases. And how easy it is to just do it with some tape or a sticky note. I do love the sticky note solution. But that's partially because I love sticky notes, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt. I do have a sticky note addiction. I do want this to be kind of blended, so I do want it to have less intensity as it goes up away from the shroom. If we lose this fade, guys, we've lost the glow effect a bit. So we need to make sure that we don't have just white going all the way up here. It should fade out slightly as it goes away from the shrooms. We aren't trying to... Our goal with these shrooms is not to make them look like the brightest thing in the room. Alright, that's pretty good. Now let's go over to this little guy. Actually, I'm going to do this dark line here. Alright, edge of the fungus. Fungal edge. I'm going to block it in really dark. I can always change that, but I want contrast. And I'm losing contrast here. My dark blue is all up there, and all of this is in the same kind of light to middle zone. And that means not enough contrast. Sometimes a model can look cool if you're trying to go for that, if everything on the model is supposed to be washed out. But even then, there's usually somewhere, like it would be a better model if you added in just a bit of dark contrast somewhere, just like a hit of it, so that everything else has a frame of reference. Because putting in something solid on the model at that point will make the rest of the model look even more ethereal. So I still believe in light dark contrast even on models that are... Look at how that crisps up that edge. Oh, neat, Holly Monster. Yeah, I don't know. If I could turn anything into a post-it note, I think I'd be out of control in no time. Square bases. Square bases are fine. I mean, they're good for miniatures games if you need to have a frontage, right? If you need to know where the front of the model is, or the sides or the back for like flanking purposes, I think square is still very useful. Otherwise, you have to kind of mark it on your round base, which is totally doable. Are you having to switch from square or to round, or from round to square, Mac? There, so that's sharpening that up. Now, gonna grab some of my cyan blue, which is our lighter blue. We had been using kind of a mixture of these two, so what I want to do here is kind of do a bit of a blend. I'm going to grab some of my Nightmare Black, which is a very, very blue black, and kind of mix it into this. But I wanted that pure Nightmare around the outer edge before I started bringing in more blue. Circle the square, huh? Yeah, it's kind of lining first. I wanted to get that that edge kind of nailed. Trash. I am going to do a mixture of these two, though. I need to get my dark blue together here. Because going straight up to cyan is a little bit too much, so gotta block that in over the pure cyan. There, that's a little better. More like the blue we've got going on up here, especially once it dries. We'll work on these little shrooms a little bit more in a moment, but wanted to get that edge out there anyway. Oh, did GW do an announcement? Were they going to change bases for everything, and then they decided not to because people were like, ah! I'm not up on the latest news. Oh, Old Hammer's coming back? Like the original? Oh, I'm super happy. Super happy. If that's real. Is that real, or are you being troll? Don't troll me on this, because I love the old Warhammer. I've never played Age of Sigmar. Well, right. Good. Yes. I'm glad Old Hammer is coming back. Wow, I might just have to find a group. I know people think that was like stodgy, you know, and everybody moving in blocky units and stuff, but I actually enjoyed the strategy and tactics of it. The limited movement. So yeah, I never got around to playing Age of Sigmar. Yay, ship notification! Is that shipping on your ship, Valendar? You gave up on GW? Yeah. I mean, I just haven't been playing because my old group is back in Texas where I moved away from Mac Attack. I'm not anti the new GW. The new GW is better than the old GW. At least their CEO isn't, like, outright evil. "400 years before the end time." Oh, during the Civil War of the Empire. Oh, neat. Nice. Ah, Shivenra. Yeah, she's pretty, though. You're going to enjoy that dragon. Yeah. So are you changing for like D&D then, Mac? Or to be more gameable for in other ways? Or is there a different game? That's too bright. All right, we'll just go back to our glowy stuff. I'll just get this in, and then we'll figure it out later. But yeah, I always found, I mean, if you're looking for more to establish a frontage for a game system or whatever, I just would mark the base, the round base into quarters to avoid rebasing. Unless you really want to rebase. In which case, yeah, go for it. All right, so we have to do this little guy here. Ah, I use square grids, yeah. Yeah, you can if you want. I don't have a round. Yeah, I do. But yeah, I mean, one way to do it is just to put little hatch markers, little dots of white on the corners of your base, just divided into quarters. It's pretty evident from that point to how the mini is facing. So you can utilize that. But yeah, it makes sense if you're doing D&D and stuff. I could see how it would just be easier to rebase, especially if you're not like in love with the bases you did in the first place. It's frontage. It just doesn't look as good, Pendrake. And sometimes the round bases like overlap, and it can be confusing as far as which part of the model is the front if the model is kind of turned. So I could see it. If you just want it to be easy for your players or yourself, I could see why you'd Yeah, I might have to look into Old Hammer. GW might actually get me to buy a book from them for once. I actually haven't been to our local Games Workshop store here. Mostly just because, you know, pandemic and I wasn't playing. And usually we just order stuff online if we needed it during all that. So I don't know if my local store is cool or not cool. Texture rollers, yeah. Yeah, I would just hate repainting them all. Especially if I really like them. Alright. So I'm trying to get this white to go all the way down, right up next to that blue. Kind of erase that line there. Still keep a bit of one. Yeah, I don't know how big the market for Old Hammer will be. I mean, nostalgia is a big thing. So there will be people like me where Old Hammer was the first game they got into, and they still really have a soft spot for it. I mean, the problem is just finding people to play. It's always the problem. Yeah, that's pretty nice. The printer, that's one thing I would enjoy using a resin printer for, would be printing stuff like tree trunks, terrain bits like that. Thanks, MacTech. Yeah, getting these glowy things going right is being a little annoying today, but that's alright. It's just because they're not up against a flat surface, they've got a textured surface, so you have to kind of figure out where the glow would go. And as I mentioned, since I'm working on a wet palette today, it makes it a little harder to get kind of the fade I want. Okay, I've got all those. This I don't think would get any. Let me see. Maybe just a tiny bit right there. I did a thing on directed lighting on my Patreon recently and talk about how I figure out where glow would be versus where glow would not be. And I think I would have just a little bit on the side of here and here. Just a tiny little bit. Probably wouldn't go down that far. So I should block that in. But a lot of glow effects are also kind of looking at it and seeing, does it read? You know, does it work? Block it in, see if it makes sense to you visually. Or if it looks weird or off. If it looks weird or off, you're probably missing something. Morning, Iffy. Yeah, it is Mech Attack for sure. I mean, it's a hobby in its own right these days, printing and cleaning them and prepping. We haven't gotten one because I don't have a good, we don't have a good place to put it. We need somewhere with more air circulation, and we don't have anywhere that's really stable or that's not full of other stuff. So we're looking for a bigger place. Then I'll probably have David do the market research. I think he's a little more interested in getting one than I am anyway. Although we still haven't quite decided if it'd be worth it for us or if it would be just yet another hobby that we would then take time away from painting. Yeah, that's why we're thinking if we can get a place with a garage, like in this climate, it would be just fine most of the year. So no, I have no interest in any 3D printer other than resin. Because if we're going to get one, we're going to get one because we want to print top quality prints that we can paint for competition and stuff. So there's no point for us to get anything but a good printer, a resin printer, sorry. I'm sure there are good FDM printers as well. Just different, it's a different thing. Block this in. Yeah, which is yet another reason we don't have one. I mean, obviously we don't have a place to put it that's safe, Malvernus. But there are certainly, I mean, I could see us getting one just because we do like a lot of the 3D print sculpting that's going on out there. Not that David or I really need any more miniatures at this point, trust me here. But, all things considered, it's not a priority for us. Like I said, the other thing is that it would take away from existing aspects of our hobby. The cleaning and stuff. More time in prep, less time in paint. Which is why I currently buy my 3D prints off of Etsy. Let somebody else do that work. Yeah, Andy's cool. He keeps up on all the new stuff. He's a good teacher. All right. Here is going to be interesting because here I need to do a glow effect onto this mushroom stuff too. So we'll figure out this first. The texture is a little different here. The other thing that makes it hard here is that this goes back a ways. There's a big shadow dip here, so it's not all going to get glow. Remember to make your glow a lot brighter down near the bottom, near the light source. And then fade it out as it goes up. Hey, Mike Disney, how's it going? Haven't seen you on for a while. I'm doing glowy effect on Mushroom Girl. Boom. Mushroom Girl. Mushroom Girl. There she is. Ah, good. Thanks for the link, Quindy. So, 3D Printing Basics by Andy Pieper. None other than. Like I said, Andy's a good teacher. So if you're curious about 3D printing, I would imagine he would be a really good resource, and that class would be a really good resource for you. And it's free! Thank you. She's getting there. We're slowly working out color schemes and things on her. She's not my favorite thing I'm working on right now. But she is, she's coming along. Actually, I'm getting to like her more. The more I do, the better I like her. The question is, do I want to make the puffy stuff up here blue as well, or if that's going to over blue things? I kind of feel like maybe it should be a little bit blue. But I don't want to over blue. That's interesting, Mac. Yeah, I know so little about it that I'm not an informed, not at any, by anybody's lights am I informed on the subject, well informed. I have left it to other people so far. But there are some pretty darn cool models out there, and every once in a while I think about it. So just kind of going to block in a bit of shadow between my fungal dress and There we go. So we've got that kind of blocked in. It just makes a nice dark line to set off the areas from each other. That I'm going to have to like put some color over here. To do that highlight on. And this is all pretty much blocking at this point, and I'm not sure that I'm going to keep that much of it. I may, however, make it blue enough so that if I look at it from the back, I want to see just a little bit of this blue. So maybe actually I'll take that blue right up here against her skin and pull it around. Do the mushrooms up on top, kind of blue and spory, kind of like her hands actually, kind of glowy. Can't do totally glowy because it's like deep in shadow, so the best we can do is kind of suggest some lighter and darker areas back here. And I'll bring these down a little bit because, yeah, the mushroom cap's going to block some stuff. Let me kind of hand it out here. Kind of looking at it from a distance to see how much we lose to shadows from the big cap. You don't see a lot of these little mushrooms near the top very well at all. I think I'm going to stop my blue around there. And then we'll start blending into other colors. But I'll bring a little bit in here. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a couple beautiful forest dragons out there, Mech Attack. One of them though, I don't know if it's the one she's talking about, but there's one that just seems to be like a pain to print. Has all tiny little leaves and stuff. I mean, freehand work, Omen, the best thing. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, it's a beautiful forest dragon. I've been tempted by that one. My first army for GW was Wood Elves, so yes, totally. Totally. It's about time somebody put out an amazing forest dragon, even if it is a pain to print. Omen, I was a 2D artist before I was a 3D artist, so I've always been a doodler and a sketcher. The best way to start with freehand is to start with really simple shapes and break them down into like basic components. There isn't really anywhere on this model that I can talk about it, but if you ask, I don't know if you can make my stream on my my Twitch account this afternoon, twitch.tv/paintingbig, but I'll be working with my freehand design on the back of my Halfling Assassin. And I can show you a little bit more what I'm talking about there. But generally, like, you want to use very simple geometric-based designs at first and kind of connect the dots with them to get them spaced out before you draw in the design. But I'd start with something just very simple. Usually what I tell people to do is start with cloak borders, like just a simple line or a simple bar with a little bit of, you know, maybe a bit of zigzag in it, you know, something that's actually pretty easy to do, and then work out from that. Yeah. It's on Twitch, so it's twitch.tv/paintingbig, or you can just use that link and give me a follow, and I'll be on this afternoon around 4 p.m. USA Central. All right, I think good, but definitely we've got, so if we look at the back of the model, we've got some blue coming down the sides. I like that, but I need to bring it in on this side. I like to have some symmetry, even though mushrooms wouldn't necessarily be symmetrical. But I want to bring in a little bit. And yeah, Pendrake, I think I want to fade to green and then go down at the bottom. I want to go to the bright corals and oranges that I'm going to do up on her cap up here. That's what I think I want to do. Sorry, you said that a while ago, but I wasn't at a point where I could talk about it yet. So this is a mixture, by the way, of Nightmare Blue with some bleached linen in it and a tiny touch of cyan just to make it a little bit brighter. Nightmare Blue is 9280. It's a blue-black. It's really pretty. Sorry, Nightmare Black, not Nightmare Blue. I call it Nightmare Blue because it's so very blue. But it is Nightmare Black. Yeah, runes are hard. Runes are hard. The best thing you can do with runes is to look up existing runes from, like, Kabbalistic religion or, like, you know, like Norse runes and things like that. Look up existing runes and then just change a little part of them. That way it looks like recognizable rune, but maybe you add or you subtract some stuff from it. Or the thing I like to do is to combine two of them. Combine two of the shapes. So, runes are harder than you think. Definitely. I feel your pain. We'll probably be doing some runes, actually, on that half-orc wizard that we were working on yesterday. Because I want to do, like, a spell circle on her base. So we'll do a couple of little runes. But you really don't have to get very elaborate with them. I think that people tend to think they need to get, like, really elaborate, Final Fantasy-esque elaborate, and they don't. Simple is better. And also drawing them out beforehand on a piece of paper. I always do that. I sketch on a piece of paper until I get something that I like, and then I'll redraw it just to see it without all the sketchiness and adjust parts of it. And sometimes even then, when I go to put it on the model, I'll end up changing it a little bit so that it fits better on the mini. Oh, there we go. Yep. Quindy's got it. There's also a freehand thing back there. Good job. Thanks, Quindy. Oh, okay. Then you had too much paint on your brush, Omen. If the paint went everywhere, then you had too much paint on your brush. Unloading your brush is actually really important in miniature painting. I did an entire video on it on my Patreon. It was that important. And that actually is the most useful video on my entire Patreon as far as I'm concerned. If you watched nothing else, watch the unloading your brush video. Seriously. I'm not joking. People forget the simple mechanical things that can make your painting successful or versus frustrating. Oh. Yeah, I was bouncing back and forth earlier. I don't know if I want to do a fade to green up there, but I'll think about it. Maybe. Or maybe I'll do some green stipples, kind of like the blue stipples down here, but green up here. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a lot of blue, like, right there, so, it's probably the last thing I'll paint. I'll probably get everything else painted, and then I'm going to stare at it and go, okay, what am I missing? What am I missing? And sometimes you do that. Like, you honestly do paint everything else because you're not sure what you want to do with one little part of the model. It's usually not even an important part of the model. Like, her knees are not the important part of this mini, right? But it may be the last thing that I paint because I just don't know what I want to do with it. Because I feel like I need to do something, but I'm not there yet. I do like how this blue on this dress is looking, though. I do like how that color... Let me back out. Gotta look at the whole mini to get color composition, and I am too close. 1 second while I raise my... Whoop. We are raising up. Now we can look at more of the whole mini. Look at our placement of color. I like this. What I'm actually lacking, though, now that I look at it, is this rose color down below. So I wonder if I should, like, make this more, like, fleshy, this area. Maybe I should bring my rose color down into here. I think that might be it. I'm still going to think about it. But I think that might be a good idea. Because I haven't repeated that color, mostly because it's so heavy up here. There's so much of it. But I don't have it anywhere down here. So if I don't put it here, I'm going to need to pop it in somewhere. All right, let's go back to, now that I've got that blue kind of locked in, I can go back to my glow effect because now I have an area that I can paint my glow effect onto. There. Hey, Trouble, thanks for the resub. It's a sub and a half anniversary. Good morning, Inara. How's it going? We are shrooming. We're on the shrooms today. Shrooms. Oh, it's almost stretch time. My back is much better. Was good to it yesterday. Did lots of stretches. Some really lightweight yoga that didn't directly force it to do crazy things. And it has rewarded me by feeling much better today. I may be stupid to my back every once in a while, but at least I'm good at sweet talking it afterwards. All right, so blocking in a little bit, and you can see the glowy effect on how it's translating a little bit better when you zoom out too. Sometimes you get too close to something, and you really need to pull it out, look at it from further away to see if it looks like it's glowing. And there on this side I have to be careful. That's pretty right. A little bit brighter down near the shroom, though. Always brighter right near the light source. There it goes. Gonna blend out just a little bit. Probably gonna bring out. Gonna fade this guy a little bit more. Yeah, that looks good. That looks glowy enough. Yeah, I think this is 4th stream, Mac, maybe 5th. Because we did, the cap was the first thing we did, and this was a mini which I started, and I really had no concept. Like, I knew the general, like, color scheme. I knew I wanted to do green, red, blue. But other than that, when I started, I didn't really have a concept, because the concept art that I was using, the mushroom guy was very, very differently put together than she was, so I had to really think about where I was going to put those colors. And so it took a while to kind of get it around to the point where I was like, oh, all right, now this is working. I like this. This is good. But yeah, I think we did like the cap and blue block in. We did like detailing at least one day. We did this detailing on another day. I want to say maybe this is our 5th or 6th mushroom stream. She's a big model, even though she doesn't have a lot of, like, different areas on her. Like, it's not like she's covered in jewelry or has, you know, a lot of fine detail armor or anything. But she does have, you know, a lot of different areas, especially once we're getting back onto the mushroom, cracked mushroom top back here. So she is, because she's bigger, she's going to take a little bit longer. I'm just bringing in some darker olive there to define that leg a bit. Although I may end up blending that in if we go pink, if we go with that fleshy color on the top of this stalk, which I'm leaning toward. So once again, I'm staying really flexible on this model because I wasn't sure what sort of color composition I was going to end up with. Don't have a ton of shadow and highlight on like the inside. It's because it's like in shadow. So I haven't put a lot of this isn't done yet. Like I don't have these little dots things like all filled in with lighter blue yet over here. I kind of like went and plopped around other places. But yeah, I wouldn't, somebody asked Omen if I was going to make this glow in here, like I kind of did like a kind of a glowy spore effect out here. And the answer was no, because it's a terrible place to do it because of the natural shadow that's cast. You could paint this entire thing white and it still wouldn't look like it was glowing because the cast shadow is too strong to overcome. The only way you could overcome it is if you put an LED up in there. But then you've got a natural light source, so you don't really need to do a glow effect. But yeah, things that are very strongly shadowed are never good targets for anything with strong highlighting. I mean, you should be kind of emulating the highlighting that you see when you put it in a natural setting. I mean, doesn't mean you don't highlight a little bit. I've done a little bit of highlighting in here, but it does mean that when this is the part of the cap that gets light, I observe that and I don't go crazy on other parts of the cap that get a lot of shadow. I mean, you're just, at that point, you're kind of just wasting a lot of work putting a lot of highlights on someplace that wouldn't even get highlights. No, not at all. I don't. I used to. Back in the day, in the 90s, what we all thought. 90s and early 2000s, everybody was said that the mantra was highlight up to white. But these days, Omen, I am more in tune with the way that some of the European painters think about lighting, which is that your highest highlight should reflect what the surface is like. It's much more of a 2D art viewpoint, where you're like, if you're going to highlight a surface up to white, it's either going to be a white object or a very pale object, like her skin, for example. Or it's going to be a shiny object or something that would reflect light. Otherwise, if it's like velvet or it's like a wool cloth or it's like, there's any number of surfaces that aren't shiny. So they really shouldn't go up to pure white. Yeah, it's a different way of thinking. And it's one that we don't get taught a lot in starting miniature painting. It's usually considered kind of a complex concept. It's more of a conceptual thing. But once you kind of get that, it helps you do things like non-metallic metal, or even, when you're going to highlight your regular metallics. It lets you do texture a lot better. If you start to do textures on your surfaces, that's one of the things you got to think about is, what is the texture of this? Is it rough wool? Is it linen? Is it silk? If it's silk, it's going to go up almost to pure white because it's a shiny fabric. But wool isn't going to. You can look at wool in the brightest of lights and it's not going to go up to pure white. Yeah, OSL is a conceptual technique. So it's not like it's a necessary technique. It's not like you ever have to paint something glowy. But if you are interested in it, you gotta start thinking about, the most useful thing you can do is to start thinking about how light acts. But yeah, you can also take the shortcut, as you say, Mac. If you really just decide, no, that's not for me. I'm just putting some green shadows in around these areas that we may go with that fleshy pink later, because I kind of want to shade the pink with the green. So putting these kind of shadows in here is going to remind me that I want to do that. That would be shading with complementary colors, which is something that you can do if you're a clever painter. And you want a bit more interesting highlights and shadows. I don't know, Omen. I think that it really depends. Like you just need contrast. Especially if you're working with like a dark blue like this, you don't have to take it up to pure white. The only reason I wanted to take it up that far here is because I wanted to suggest that these little motes were like glowing spores. So if I had just been painting this glove like, not like it was glowing, I would not have gone up to white. I would have just gone up probably to a, medium light blue. Because you just need enough contrast. You don't need, it's like her bikini here. Like I've highlighted it, but I'm not going to bring it up to white because it's a dark color and I still need it to look different from her skin. So that's another thing. When you're alternating, something you should do on your figures that's actually going to help you more is alternate light and dark and light, or middle dark and light. You can see how I've been doing that here. I've got kind of a middle color with this pink, a dark with the blue, a pale with the skin, a dark with the hair, a medium with the green. More light, then medium, then light, then medium. Then we're going to go to like a bit of a dark blue shadow over here. That's why when I said there's no dark down here and I need to add it, that's what I was talking about. So if you think more about like going dark light, or dark middle light, whatever, alternating those areas on your figures, you're probably going to get better results out the gate. And then you can think about like relative highlights. But everything going up to white, I think, is not something I'd recommend. For one thing, it's really hard. It's really, really hard. As a painter, when I started, it was certainly difficult to work with like a big range of shadow to highlight. That was why NMM, non-metallic metal steel, could be so difficult, and still can be very difficult, is that you're trying to go from black to white, or almost black to pure white, in the space of a sword or a piece of armor. And so it is actually really difficult to do that. But, you do you, and if you feel it's helping you, do it. But if you get frustrated with it, don't feel like you have to do it. That's not something I would say is like a must do to become a better painter. In fact, I feel like it could frustrate you. Pardon me while I got some drops of pink on her shoulder. I want to get those off, so I'm just mixing a quick pale. The things that should go up to near white are like hair, because it's shiny, skin, because the oils in the skin make it shiny, metal, shiny fabrics, any object that is wet or that you want to portray as wet, all those things should go up to white. And of course, light colors, like her skin, since it's really, really pale, it probably has a pure white highlight. But otherwise, when it comes to medium or dark colors, if the area isn't shiny or wet or oily, then you don't need to. Doing some quick touch-ups here. Hey, Val. Dragon Skeleton Lord. Ah. But yeah, I like to talk about stuff like that, about how different surfaces go up to different levels of highlight. Sergio, in his workshop that he had at Reaper, Sergio Calvo Rubio is a really, really good Spanish painter. He calls it a ceiling. And the ceiling of each surface is different. And it depends on how wet, oily, or shiny it is. All right. Yes, good, good, good. All right, it's going to be stretch time. I'm going to lay her down, get her in focus, so you guys have something to look at while I'm doing my stretches. Get my paint out of... Boop. We'll get a little closer. There we go. Glowy, glowy shrooms. That's nice. No man, Zeke. I mean, sad that there are parts missing, but that's relatively little missing. Alrighty. Stretch time. Anybody who wants to, feel free to get up and stretch your spine and your shoulders. Whatever else needs stretching. Personally, I like to remind my spine that it goes the other direction. And your forehead, right? Ominkin, jaw and forehead, isn't that what they say in yoga? That you tend to hold tension in like your like brow and your jaw. Yeah. Oh, the absolute worst headaches. Yeah. I get headaches when my neck gets out of whack, which in this hobby is, fraught with peril pretty much, right? Yeah, I definitely want to do something with that front, more with the brown on the front there. It needs more detail, more sharpness, more everything. Looking at it while I'm staring at my monitor. All right. Getting my shoulders stretched out. I'm going to go do just a second of floor exercises, and we will be back to futz around more with this mini. Now add the glue to the blue to the glow. There we go. Boop. Slimy texture. Yeah, at this point, the other thing to worry about on this one, because I will bring up the highlights on this brown stuff probably, as you say, just because they probably are wet. But it can be difficult too when you're trying to do a bunch of different kind of texture or light effects. So like this is glowing, so it's almost up to white. But then if I put more white up here, is that going to look like glowing or is it going to look like shiny? It can be difficult to start to juggle a lot of different effects. There we go. All right, let us zoom in down here. Get in focus. Focus, mini, focus. I don't use resins like pourable mixable resins for water. I tend to mess around just with little stuff like with water effects, Woodland Scenics water effects omen. But my boyfriend won a, or I guess he didn't win a crystal brush, but he got like first cut in crystal brush with a mermaid that used pour resin. He likes to mess around with that stuff. I don't like it that much. But his mermaid's amazing. Like, the best water I think I've ever seen. Oh, I don't do that, Omen. I don't use gloss sealer to suggest moisture unless I'm also doing metallics. I talk about this a bit in, I forget, previous streams I've touched on it. But what I find is that it's like using non-metallic metal and metallics on the same model. It tends not to work. Because the fact that you've got real metal or real gloss sealer on the model will mean that your NMM doesn't look real anymore. Because you've got a real representation of it. So I tend, since I'm doing a lot of NMM, especially on this show, I don't, No, it doesn't photograph well. Metallics are also very hard to photograph for the same reasons. I know a miniature company, though, that I thought was awesome for years until I saw their models in person and realized that the awesome blended highlights actually didn't exist. It was just gloss sealer on their studio models. It was just totally disappointing. Oh, David didn't use UV resin. He used pourable, like, mixable, pourable resin for his mermaid. I should go and grab her quick to show you guys who haven't seen it, because she's a sight. Let's see. But I'm going to try this first. So I mixed a blue glaze with my cyan blue, which is my brightest blue. And I'm just going to paint it over this white. And I'm going to come back and wick off any excess that I see. So anywhere it pools, I'm going to dry, you know, kind of rinse off my brush and dry it out a little. And come back and pull off all these little puddles. Because when you have the paint so thin, it won't dry evenly. It'll dry like coffee stains. So you always want to take out that extra. But then you get the colored glow. Yeah, that was Rackham Cornico. Oh, there we go, Quindy. Yeah, if you guys want to see what how David did the water on the mermaid. Like, I think he's got some good pictures there, too. Let me see. So, yeah. There you go. So, yeah, just the second picture there, after the one in the header, is shows you the water that he did with the resin. It's pretty darn awesome. You should take a look. Never meet your heroes. Actually, it was empowering to do so, Omen, because essentially my painter friend Jennifer and I, we had been trying to like blend as smooth as that for months, you know, and we'd gotten to the point where we could do it, and then seeing it was a lie. We're just like, well, we've just ended up being better painters for it, really. So we were reaching for an ideal that didn't even exist until we met it. Essentially. So I would say that it was a good thing. Yeah, isn't the mermaid amazing? My guy is very talented. He is super fantastic painter. And he's a lot braver than I am with trying stuff that he's never tried before. He had never done a water base before that. If you can believe that. He had never done it. And he turns out with possibly, like, the best water base I've ever seen. Except for maybe one. There's one that our friend Seth did that's an AT-AT with a ton, like, it's walking through a deep river on a forest world, I think. And it's like got the water up to its knees and the water's rushing. And like Seth did an amazing job on that sucker. It looks real and it's a ton of water. It's a ton of pour. So that's really difficult. But otherwise I'd say David's is a close second. Because it looks like seawater. Like the movement of it and the color of it. And he got everything on that model. And then he did an article to tell you how he did it. Because he's awesome that way. He's still working on his NMM article. He's been working on it probably since I moved here. I keep reminding him that he needs to finish it at some point. Yeah. Yep. That would be that Seth. He likes to use all that solvent crazy AK stuff. I've never been convinced because I really don't like solvents, but he certainly does get some great effects. This is my Da Vinci Maestro Series 10 size 1 green oaks. It's the same size, essentially, as a size 0 Winsor & Newton Series 7. I know this because David has one, and we compared. So if you can't get the Da Vinci, but you want this size and shape, Winsor & Newton 0 is very close. So we're doing our glazing, and we're getting this blue glow. We're turning our white glow into blue. This is how I like to do glow effects. Okay, it gives the best result. You bet, Green Oaks. It is my favorite brush. It's the brush I've used for decades, literally decades, when competition painting. I feel that it is my most versatile brush. But I just got a gigantic new brush that I'm looking forward to trialing. Yeah, isn't it awesome? Yeah, he looked at a lot of pictures. I mean, he also grew up next to the ocean. He grew up in Seattle, Cornico. So he often biked by the water, and he did a lot of hiking and vacations near the ocean. Um, yeah, without seeing your brush handling, Omen, I'm not sure about that. There are several reasons that can occur. Make sure you're only dipping a little bit of your brush in the paint. If you watch when I dip my brush in the paint, like, I'm not dipping very much of it at all. And what that does is it keeps paint and water with paint in it from creeping up to the ferrule here, to the metal part. Once paint gets in there, it will naturally tend to push the hairs apart. So, and you don't want it to set in there for sure. So you do want to only dip a little bit. And then you also want to unload your brush. So like once you do have, say you do have a bunch of paint and water in your brush, I would use my palette for this, but you want to unload it. You want to dab it off so that you have just enough paint on your brush that you can do stuff. Like I did that little brush stroke there. You can see that even though it looks like I've got almost no paint on my brush, I still do. And the other thing is, yeah, mostly I think having too much paint on your brush can do it. You can also give your brush a wash if it's been used and you see that it's got some discoloration down here near the ferrule. That usually means there is paint stuck in there. Do I have a brush where I've abused that much? Yeah. So the dark kind of discoloration right near the ferrule of my old crappy mixing brush, that is going to make... This brush used to have a point. No more. And it's because of this gunk, which I don't bother dealing with because I'm just like, it's my crappy mixing brush. Hands are fine if you want to paint your thumb to unload. I'm trying to think other stuff that might contribute to that. It also depends on if it's a Taklon or a natural hair brush. I don't know if you've got the black handled Reaper brushes or the red Omen Kitten, but the red is a synthetic bristle and it will naturally tend to splay a lot faster than the natural hair will. All right, now I just need a little more blue over there, I think. Otherwise, I'm happy with my blue glows down here. I got maybe a little bit too dark here. I can always bring my my white back in. I can even add just a tiny bit of blue to my white. To bring up, if I feel like I've lost a little bit of the glow because I've lost a little bit of the lightness. Because that can happen when you glaze. You can bring back just a touch of really pale off-white right down at the bottom to make that glow come back. There. And then I feel like I need a little more blue over on this side. More cat, the whole cat is more absorbent as well. It will take up more paint, and thus you can spread your paint quicker across the ship. There we go. I need a little bit more down here. We're a little bit in shadow there under that ledge, and that's why we're getting a little bit of conflict there. Just checking to make sure I've got a bit of blue painted over all of the rest of my white here. Oh, we forgot the blue over the blue. And that's going to make everything look very blue over here. Cool, Awkward Phoenix. Welcome. Yeah, this is, although I paint to display quality standard for like Reaper, I do answer, feel free to ask like new questions, like new person questions, basic questions. Always ask, because we have a lot of newbies who watch this stream, and chances are if you have a question, they're thinking about asking that question, so it's always useful. But yeah, we're a very friendly stream. Reaper, if you're going to get into miniature painting, Reaper is a great company to start with too. They make it less expensive, and we have great learn to paint kits. Because it can get pricey, depending. You can keep it relatively cheap, or you can go all in. It's a hobby that definitely can grow on you. Yeah, there we are. See, we are so helpful. Quindy has a link in the chat too to our Learn to Paint kits. The first one is a basic one, so it's a good place to start. And Owen Kitten has a good point. Just jump in. What's the worst thing that happens? You don't like it? Throw it out. Get a new one. If you're using plastic minis, they're like a couple bucks each. Or you can sometimes get friends if they're like changing armies, or they're like, you know, they have a bunch of models they don't want anymore. You can sometimes get them for even cheaper. Cool, Trouble. But yeah, totally, just jump in. Like, never let fear hold you back on stuff like this. I mean, jump in, see if you like it. If you don't like it, it's not an emergency. There are plenty of other art hobbies you could try. Just don't invest too much off the bat if you're not sure that you're going to like it. All right, what do I want? What am I on? What am I on now, guys? I think I am on. We've only got like 10 more minutes. So I think I'm going to fill out this blue and maybe see if I can fade it into a little bit of greenishness, or do I want to go red? This is really the question. I think I want to try to fade it into kind of a greenishness. Oh yeah, garage sales are good too. Oh, you have 50 minis. Okay. Yeah, just sit down and do it sometime. Or ease yourself into it. Awkward Phoenix. You can always just like say, oh, I'm going to just read the first part of my Learn to Paint kit. You know? And then the next day can be, I'm just going to prep the minis and make them ready for painting. So breaking it down into little things so it's not just, I'm starting a new hobby, roar. That stuff can help you make progress. This is cool. So I'm just going to put some olive into I'm kind of a tealy color. I tend to really like olive greens mixed with vibrant blues. I think that they actually look really cool. They make a really cool teal. I'm just going to futz around and see if I can get something I like here. So that's kind of a fade. Oh yeah, for sure. That's by far the worst paint job I've ever seen. But at least it's painted. Yep. That is the thing. Well, and this hobby is such a source of relaxation. Like, it's so zen. So definitely like relax and just ease into it, and try not to get too like invested in how good you are or anything like that off the bat. Just enjoy it. The great thing about miniature painting is it just takes you out of yourself, and you're painting a person, a little person or a little dragon or whatever, and you can just zone and just do it. Listen to your, podcast, audiobook, or in my case, music, and really relax. Like, that's why I fell in love with this hobby back in the day, is that I was an anxious, like, stressor out warrior person, and this hobby really helped me relax. So Ah, digital art. Yeah. Yeah, primer, I mean, invest in a good primer. If you're working with plastic models like the Reaper Bones, you don't even have to prime them. I only just wash mine. But if you're working with any other plastic or styrene plastic or resin or metal, then you definitely do want to prime them. That went really pale really fast. Trying to decide how I feel about the blue to green fade. I'm gonna keep working with it. I'm not sure it's what I want, but I'm gonna keep working with it. I mean, worst case scenario, if I don't like it, is I just paint it over. That's what I mean about just kind of like going and diving in. Worst thing that can happen, well, you just don't like it, so you paint over the paint. I mean, that's the great thing about acrylics is they cover, putting another coat over the top does pretty much get rid of what you previously didn't like. So, no, just sitting down to do the thing is almost the hardest part. Once you're sitting down, you can do the thing. That's cool, Omen. It's nice when you get your kids into it. I started when I was 9. I started under my own power, though, because my parents were just like they were not geeks. Geeks did not rule the world like they do now, and so they had me, a little geeklet, and but I was artistic, so they were like, well, it's just another form of art, so they got me some miniatures and some paints. I didn't really do much with it until I was older in college. Like when I went to college, that's when I started really getting back into it. But it is a great hobby. So I hope that you do start. Hey, basement. Learn if you've got a display mini that you want to paint that you really feel is beautiful and you want to do a good job on it, awkward, then your best thing to do is to just start on little models that are much simpler and try to utilize colors and techniques that you want to use on the big one. So you need to at least get your fundamental techniques down, and also decide whether like you're gonna get into airbrushing or if you're gonna do everything by hand. You know, airbrushing can make getting a smooth base coat with smooth highlights and shadows on big models a lot easier. Still takes practice to be good at it, but it can do a lot and give you a good basis to work the rest of the details off of. It's not too ambitious. I mean, just like don't get all wrapped up in it. Definitely think of yourself as building the skills you need to work on your display figure. But then also don't get scared that you can't ever start it. I would set like a firm goal and say, okay, once I have learned highlighting and shading to like the level of the second Reaper Learn to Paint kit, which is about layering, then I will start my display mini. Something like that. Set a goal of when I hit this goal, I will start. That way you don't get mucked up. Yeah, don't build up into a boss fight. Oh, I'm kidding. I'm gonna totally steal that phrase from you. Yeah, I mean the whole point is having fun. Omen exemplifies. Omen kitten. Listen to the kitten. The kitten has much wisdom. I'm just messing around, guys, to see if I like this kind of do. I think I do. I do like this. Trying to get an idea how I want to run this, but I think I like this. I think I'm working with it. I wasn't sure I was going to like these colors going into one another, but I think I am going to like them. And I'm doing just a lot of wet blending right now just to see if I do like it. I need to remember that I want enough blue to keep showing around the edges when I'm looking at the back of the model. Need to make sure that I keep enough blue that I don't go all into the green. Because I do want the blue still to show here and there. And then as we get to the middle here, we're going to blend it all the way from blue through the green into the coral and rose colors down the middle. And the coral and rose colors are what the majority of the cap up here will be, although I think I am going to use green and blue to shade it. It'll be a very rainbow mushroom in the end. Yeah, I'm gonna see. I don't know. I'm pretty good right now. We just got a new mini that came in a big box, and I'm like, I almost want to build her. Normally I don't build a mini until I'm ready to paint her, but I almost want to build it just to get it out of the huge box so that it's not such a pain to store. It's like, it's a mini with lots of pieces, but it really could have fit in a smaller box than that. Almost always awkward. But color is my shtick, so it's kind of what I'm good at. So usually I don't start a model until I've got a strong color concept for it. I don't map out a palette, but I have in my head, I know the colors that I mostly want. It's rare for me to start a model not knowing. Sometimes I do actually just pick out the actual paint colors and line them up and look at them that way. And other times I'm just like, this halfling is going to have purple pants and a pink shirt. Yeah, Omen, you do the exploratory, right? There, I've solved my blue problem, guys. I decided to make the bottom of it blue. That'll help tie the blue in. All right. So I'm going to back up. It's about time to call the stream. We actually, you know, it felt like I didn't accomplish much this stream, but we did actually do quite a bit. We kind of figured out that we're going to go more peachy with the pink up here around her legs, and we did a little bit more olive shading up there. We finished up our glow effects down here on these little glowing fungal pools, for lack of a better thing to call them. Oh, this is after assembly, yes. Because this model came or no, I didn't. Yeah, I did actually assemble it before I painted it. Because I was silly. But we also blocked in the blue on the edges of her dress because I decided I wanted that color to move around to the back of the model, but I don't want too much of it. So if we turn it, we've just got blue up here and around the very edges. It almost works like liner or shading around the edge. Notice that? And then down here on the bottom. And we'll blend into some greens, and then we'll go up to some of those great corals and rose colors. So that's what we did today. So we mostly were slowly working our way through the mini. And I do find that when I do start out with a color scheme where I know exactly what I'm doing where, I do progress a lot faster. So that's one reason this model maybe take a little bit longer, is because I'm kind of putting it together as I go in my head. But other than that, we actually, we did make progress today, and I'm liking how the addition of the blue around the edges is making this all come out. So Yep. All the wisdom in the chat. Yeah, I'm glad you like her, Green Oaks. I'm liking her more and more. Okay, we're gonna do Crafty Creative at 2 p.m. Central. Remember, guys, I'm streaming on my own channel at twitch.tv/paintingbig this afternoon at around 4 p.m. USA Central. So after Crafty Creative. I hope you all have a lovely day, and we'll be back tomorrow as well with Lisette Friday. All right, have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.